Welcome, everyone, to English Learning Key. I'm Anna, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, David.
Hello, friends. I'm happy to be here again. Today's story is something special, gentle, emotional, and full of mystery.
Ooh, I like that combination. What's the story called?
It's called The Café of Lost Letters. It's about a young woman who discovers an old cafe where forgotten letters seem to find their way, and how those letters slowly change her life.
That sounds beautiful already. Listeners, remember, this is listening practice, but it's also a story for your heart. Relax, enjoy the rhythm of English, and imagine the scenes as we tell them.
Exactly. Let's begin. It was a cold spring morning when Clara arrived in the small town of Windermere. The train had left behind a trail of mist, and the air smelled of rain and old wood. She pulled her coat tighter, carrying just one suitcase and a letter she hadn't yet opened. She had left the city after a difficult few months. The end of a long relationship, the loss of her job, and that quiet, heavy feeling that something inside her had gone missing.
Oh, poor Clara. Sometimes we all reach that point where we feel lost and need a new beginning.
Exactly. Clara didn't really know why she had chosen Windermere. Maybe because it looked peaceful on the map, a town between the hills and the sea. She had found a small, cheap apartment and a temporary job at the local post office. On her first day, she walked through the narrow cobblestone streets. The town smelled of baked bread and sea salt. Children played with wooden boats near the canal. The bells from the old church tower rang softly in the distance. That's when Clara saw it, a small cafe tucked between two stone buildings, with a faded sign above the door that read, "The Café of Lost Letters."
Ooh, I like that combination. What's the story called?
It's called The Café of Lost Letters.
Ooh, the Café of Lost Letters. What an interesting name.
Yes, the window was filled with envelopes, old stamps, and postcards. The door was painted sky blue, with a tiny brass bell that jingled when she opened it. Inside, the air was warm and smelled of coffee, cinnamon, and paper. Old paper. A woman behind the counter looked up and smiled. She was in her 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes. "Good morning," the woman said. "Welcome to our little cafe. First time here?" Clara nodded. "Yes, the name caught my eye." The woman laughed softly. People often say that. "I'm Margot, the owner. Would you like a table by the window?" Clara agreed. As she sat down, she noticed that every table had a small wooden box filled with envelopes.
Oh, that sounds so charming. Like every table has its own story.
Exactly. When Margot brought her coffee, Clara asked, "Why is it called the Café of Lost Letters?" Margot smiled mysteriously. "Well, every letter that ends up here has lost its destination. Maybe the address was wrong, or the writer never sent it, but somehow they always find their way here, waiting to be read." Clara laughed softly. "So they're real letters?" "Oh, yes. Some are 100 years old. Some are new. We never know where they'll come from. We just keep them safe until someone finds the one they need."
That's such a beautiful idea, like destiny through letters.
Yes, and Clara felt the same. Something about the place touched her heart. When Margot walked away, Clara reached for the wooden box on her table. Inside were 10 or 12 envelopes, yellowed by time, sealed, each with different handwriting. One caught her eye, a pale blue envelope with no name, just the words, "To the one who forgot to hope." Clara froze. Slowly, she opened it. Inside was a short note written in elegant handwriting. "If you're reading this, it means life has become heavy. Remember, even when the world forgets you, the sky never does. Look up. There's always something waiting to shine for you."
Clara read it twice, maybe 3 times. Her eyes burned with tears. It felt as if someone had written it for her, exactly for her.
So the letter had her name, even though she'd only arrived in Windermere a month ago? Confused but curious, she walked to the edge of the bay that evening. The tide was low, and the air smelled of salt and fog. There, sitting on a bench near the water, was an old man sketching boats. He looked up and smiled. "Beautiful evening, isn't it?" Clara nodded. "Do I know you?" The man chuckled. "Not yet, but I know your handwriting."
He held up an old notebook filled with old letters. You used to write to yourself. Years ago, when you visited Windermere as a teenager, you left it there at this very cafe. Margot kept it safe. Clara's eyes widened. Suddenly, memories returned. A summer long ago, when she'd stayed with her aunt in Windermere, dreaming of being a writer. She had written letters to her future self and left them at the cafe for fun.
Yes. And the old man? He turned out to be Margot's brother, Arthur. He had been helping her collect letters for decades. Arthur said gently, "You once promised yourself to follow your dreams, no matter what. Do you remember?" Tears filled her eyes. I forgot everything." He smiled kindly. "Then it's time to remember." That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She read her own old letters, full of youthful hope and courage. She realized she had become afraid of trying, afraid of failing again. So she made a decision. The next morning, she sat in the cafe with her notebook open and began to write again. Not for work, not for anyone else, just for herself. Margot poured her coffee and whispered, "The best letters are the ones we finally write back."
That's such a beautiful line.
Over the next few weeks, Clara wrote short stories inspired by the letters she read at the cafe. Margot encouraged her to leave them in the boxes for others to find. Soon, visitors began asking, "Who wrote this?" But Clara never signed them. She just smiled and kept writing. One day, a little boy found one of her notes that said, "Even when you feel invisible, someone somewhere is thankful you exist." He showed it to his mother with a big smile. Watching that, Clara realized the cafe had given her back more than hope. It had given her a purpose. Months passed. The town warmed into summer. The cafe window filled with new letters, bright paper, happy handwriting, full of love and life. Clara eventually published her first small book, The Café of Lost Letters, a collection of stories inspired by her time there. On the day of her book's release, she left one final note on her favorite table. "To whoever finds this, don't wait for the perfect moment to begin again. Begin now, before the letter gets lost."
That's perfect. It feels like she became part of the cafe's magic herself.
Exactly. The circle was complete, from a lost soul to a storyteller who helped others find their way.
Listeners, what a beautiful reminder that words, just like kindness, always find their way home. Before we close, let's look at a few helpful words from the story. Envelope, a paper cover for a letter. Hesitate, to pause before doing something. Destination, the place something or someone is going to. Courage, the ability to do something even when it's hard or scary. Purpose, the reason something exists or why we do it.
And remember, every time you practice English, you're writing your own letter to the future, to the person you're becoming.
That's lovely, David. Friends, thank you for listening to The Café of Lost Letters. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments, what kind of letter would you leave behind for someone to find?
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep listening for more stories that help you grow your English and your heart.
See you next time. And remember, even the smallest words can travel a long way.
Until then, keep learning, keep believing, and keep writing your story.